enjoy doing.
Sorry, is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I had a big post in the corner that says record, and I still managed to miss it. There we go.
Well done. It's on. Wine wise, I don't know why I suggested this, because I can never choose what I like drinking the most. I love all wine. I think it's really important to try everything. Probably lean towards like more unusual, like esoteric regions and grapes and styles. But then I have a soft spot for Spain. I think they offer so much diversity, and I love fizz as well. Traditional method sparkling wine too. So yeah, I can't choose really. I love everything. Rach, how about you?
So I'm the Rachel. I look after all our online sales and education along with Rach, and I started my WSET stuff, God, about 2007, so like ages ago. And then I finished my diploma last year with Rach. We graduated together, which was nice. And yeah, I'm the same. I like all sorts depending on what mood I'm in. Again, traditional method sparkling, whites more than reds, but anything that's good and interesting works for me. Here we go.
Christy?
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit different because I've come in more as an interest point of view. I do work with my son and his businesses. He's got coffee shops and a wine bar. And so I became interested in maybe developing things a little bit further to maybe support him. But I've done a lot of traveling with wine tasting. I love Italian wines, Spanish wines. I also love Greek wines. I'm off to Skiathos in September. And this beautiful little vineyard up in the hills there that sells and grows beautiful wines there. Summertime, I like my rosés. But yeah, Sauvignon Blanc. I like some of the more unusual wines again, and the fizz. So yeah.
Hard to choose.
Yeah, I just like, sort of wine right across the board. But I just wanted to perhaps become a little bit more knowledgeable, because I think it's good to, when you are traveling about, to be able to know a little bit more about what you're drinking. And so I'm hoping this will improve my palate a little bit more.
You can but try.
Yes.
Ed, how about you?
Who's going, me or Mike?
You go, Ed.
I'm doing this for fun, having had a few decades in hospitality and enjoyed being around wine, and I've been out of it for probably nearly 10 years now. I'm still getting past the wine list in every restaurant I go to when we go out for dinner with people, because they expect me to know more about wine. And invariably I might do, but I just thought it was a good idea to sort of refresh and be a bit more current. And Michael talked me into it when I was already 5 pints.
That doesn't sound like Mike.
It wasn't very difficult to talk you into it.
Your turn, Mike.
Okay, so I own a bar restaurant on the Wirral, and I have done some of my WSET before. I did the level 2 and 3 with the Grosvenor when I worked there years ago. Started my diploma and then got carried away with the exciting side of drink and kind of didn't finish the diploma. And that was obviously 20 years ago. And so now I feel like I need to, that many things have changed in the wine world. I want to get back into it and do, my goal is to do the 2 or 3 and actually complete my diploma this time without getting sidetracked by the negative sides of hospitality. That is my goal.
Excellent. Yeah, do it.
Never going to happen that way.
Wine. I think there's a wine for every occasion. Last night I had a beautiful Bardolino rosé, which is stunning, and then a really unique sweet red dessert wine, which the waitress offered. Never heard of it before. The amount of random Greek wines they have literally blows my mind, but it was stunning. Yeah. So yeah, I'll drink anything at any time.
That's it. Say yes to everything.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to meet like this for the next 8 Tuesdays. We've got 16 hours worth of classroom time, so 6:30 till 8:30. If you can't make it for any reason, we understand. If you could just let us know beforehand, we appreciate it's a long course, there's a lot of hours, and we've all got lives outside of WSET. But what we'll do, we'll record these sessions each week and we'll email them to you regardless over the next couple of days. So you have them. So if you want to dip back into them when it gets closer to the exam, or you feel like you just need to recap, you can do so. Sorry, can you start the slides now, Rach, please?
I can.
It might be a good idea, guys, just to put on your view. If you do, there we go. The side-by-side gallery, and then you can see all of the slides.
Can you see anything, Mike?
Yeah, I can. It's a lot of background noise because obviously I can mute myself if you want me to. There's like lots of people in this area.
No, it's fine. We can't really
Yeah, it's
hear
fine
anything.
at the moment. We'll let you know if it becomes
a
problem. Okay, Rach, can you click on for me, please? So just a bit of housekeeping to begin with.
Sorry, it's doing that thing again where it won't click. Why is it? There we go.
There we go. Okay, so just excuse this first bullet point because this is more about when we teach courses in person. So I'm sure you all know your own houses. So study materials, you should all have had your study pack, and they include your textbook. So this is for you to do your private study from. Your workbook, which is this one. So this is for you to work through and use for notes. These are all for you to keep. The SAT card, which is what we'll use to refer to when we're tasting. Got the SAT on one side and the lexicon on the other. And then you all should have received the specification as well that I emailed earlier. That's quite a handy tool for when you're studying. It's quite a good checklist. It's just all of the course content really. So if you want to refer back to that when it gets closer to the exam to check know everything that's going to be included potentially on the exam, it's quite handy to have that to hand. So classroom time, I've already covered that. So like I said, 16 hours. And then private study, WSET suggest or recommend a minimum of 11 hours private study. So that's when your textbook comes in handy. You can do some bedtime reading and some highlighting and things with that one. And then exam. So our exam is on the 9th week. So what we're probably going to do is still log on at 6:30. Rach and I will do a bit of a recap. And then the exam will start at 7:30. It's an hour long, the exam, and it's 50 multiple choice questions. You need to achieve 55% to pass, so 28 correct questions. And then there's higher marks awarded for, obviously, higher marks. So the exam, it's a remotely invigilated exam, and WSET do it via third party, so it's not invigilated by Rachel and I. But nearer the time, I will send you some guidance on how to do a remotely invigilated exam. It's very straightforward. You just need 2 devices. You need your laptop and then maybe your phone. But that'll give you just some helpful advice as to how to do the remotely invigilated exam. Results, we should receive those within a month of the exam, and then I'll email them out to you, and then within a couple of months we'll have your pins and your certificates, which I'll get those to you as well, because we have full faith that you'll all pass with flying colours.
Okay, so we're going to cover off in the next. Oh, you okay, Rach?
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions so far?
No, it's fine.
Okay, so the next couple of hours, we're going to cover off tasting technique, identification of faults, and food and wine pairing. So in terms of the tasting environment, you generally want good lighting. I'm not sure. No strong odours, because that's going to interfere with the aromatics of the wine. Ideally, if you're driving, you need some spittoons and space for glasses and notes. And ideally, again, not too many other flavors on the palette, so no Monkey 47s. But no coffee, no really strong flavors, because that's going to affect things. No strong perfume after shave, suitable glassware, and we tend to fill it up to the widest part of the rim of the tulip shape, so not too much, maybe 1.5 inches. Okay, so we use what's called the systematic approach to tasting in the WSET. And if you look at your lexicon, that's what that is. And the reason we do that is that we've all got different palates, we've all got different sensitivities to different flavors, we all have different ways of describing wines. So this is to give us a common language and also to help calibrate our palates. So we're all sort of singing from the same hymn sheet. And to evaluate the wine, it's broken down into 4 sections. We've got appearance, nose, palate, and once we've made an assessment of those, we can come up with a conclusion on the quality. Okay, so if you turn to page 8 of your workbooks, you'll have some, if you've got them with you, don't worry if you haven't, you can watch this back if you need to. Turn to page 8 and there's some opportunities for you to write some tasty notes as we're going along. So if you've got your 3 wine glasses, if you could pour samples 1, 2 and 3 into the glass. Now, I'm not going to call them 1, 2 and 3 actually, I'm going to call them Pinot Grigio, Gewurz and the Chenin because WSET have labelled them incorrectly. So the first wine we're going to taste is Pinot Grigio, the second one is the Gewurz, and the third one is the Oak Chenin. If you can put them in that order, that would be great. But don't pour all of it out. Just pour a little bit of each because you need some for the food matching later.
Oh, right.
But if you have already poured it out, don't worry, just remember to save some for a bit later on.
Right, okay.
That's all. Okay. Okay, and the idea with these, is everyone okay?
Yeah.
And the idea with these 3 whites is we've got 3 different styles of white wine, which is going to help us differentiate things like appearance, intensity of flavour, and the characteristics on the palate. So the first thing we look at is the appearance. The majority of wines would be classed as clear. Haziness might indicate a fault in the wine. But as you know, with all the natural winemaking, it can sometimes just be a winemaker's choice. It could be their decision to keep it unfiltered and has a hazy character. But the wines we're going to taste for WSET level 2 are all going to be classed as clear. Okay. Would you agree that they're all clear?
Yeah.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So intensity. There's several ways to think about the intensity when we're looking at the colour of the wine. It's sometimes a bit easier with red wines, but for white wine, you want to sort of angle it at 45 degrees, maybe put it against a bit of white paper. And what you're looking at is the difference between the core and the outer rim. If it's got an outer watery rim, then it's likely to be pale. And most of the wines we're going to taste throughout the course, the white wines, are going to be classed as pale. But if you try that and if you can see that the edge is quite watery, that's definitely a pale colour, pale intensity, should I say. So if you have a look at all of the wines individually, I should have said that we would normally have samples of our own, but we donated them to Ed because the tasting company we get the samples from in France have shut down for August. So but we know these wines well, so we wanted you to have the opportunity to taste them. So can you see the difference in intensity and colour potentially with the 3 wines? It'll be very subtle. In theory, wine 3, which is the Oak Chenin, might have a slightly deeper intensity, but it would still be described as pale. So I would put pale down for all 3 on the intensity of colour, intensity of appearance. Okay. Moving on to the colour, whites can vary, but most will fit into the lemon category. Lemon green can sometimes be a more herbaceous wine, like a Sauvignon Blanc, that can have a slightly green tinge. But again, if you were to put lemon down, it wouldn't be incorrect. And you're not actually assessed on tasting at level 2, but it's a good builder for level 3 if you go on to do that. So don't worry too much about lemon green. They generally fit into the lemon category. A wine may be gold simply because it's had some oak aging, some time in barrel, and that's just sort of not oxidized, but some of that exposure to the oxygen through the barrel will just sort of warm the colour up a bit. And then, of course, amber and brown are more likely with a fortified wine. Now, I'm going to see if I can share my little shade charts with you just to show you. Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so that's just a little indication. So we've got a Chardonnay from the Chablis region here. It's pale lemon. And then we've got a Chardonnay from Napa, which is a much warmer climate. So the fruit's going to be slightly, it's going to produce a slightly deeper colour, but also it's had some barrel aging. So in terms of the scale, this would be pale lemon, and that might still be pale in intensity, depending on the wine, but definitely more on the gold side of things. That just helps give you an indication of what we're talking about there. Right, back to the presentation. Bear with me a second. So if you just have a look at your wines 1, 2, and 3. Wine 1, lemon. Would everyone agree lemon?
Yes.
Yeah. Wine 2 and 3 should be similar. I say wine 3 might have a slightly deeper shade, but I don't think it's gold. Okay, everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so then we're going to come on to the nose, and smelling the wine is really important to help release the aromatics. But the first thing we're going to do is just check whether it's clean or unclean, because we want to pick up some if there's any faults. So faults that affect the aromas and flavours in wine include cork taint, closure failure, and heat damage. Can anyone tell me what sort of what would be indicative of cork taint? What sort of aromas would you get?
Soggy cellar.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of damp
Cardboard.
Yeah.
Damp, wet cardboard, a sort of mouldy aromas will come through. So it'd be quite obvious with cork taint. It doesn't happen so much anymore. Closure failure. The wine may have become oxidized, and when a wine's oxidized, it loses its aromatics, so it tastes quite dull. It may have sort of turned a browny color. And as well as closure failure, that will happen if you've had a wine open for too long and you've not treated it with an argon spray or used a vacuum pump. Then that wine's going to have that sort of similar oxidized taste and aroma, and it'd be really flat. Heat damage, this is something to really think about. If you put a box of wine in your car and you're traveling around in this weather and it's warm and it's sunny, anything over 70 degrees for over an hour is really going to have an effect on the quality of the wine. It's going to jammy, sort of slightly sour notes. So you really don't want your wines in a warm car or on display or in the kitchen, because it can really affect the quality of the wine. Okay, so in terms of the nose, so if you want to have a little smell of them all.
Yeah, everything's okay?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Would you like more?
No,
Okay, do they all smell clean? No faults to be reported? It's very strange doing this without samples. Everyone happy? Clean? Okay. And then again, it's important we get some air into that. That's going to help release the aroma, release the compounds. And we're looking to see whether it's light, medium, or pronounced in intensity. Now, this is where you should really start to notice the difference between the wines, because they all look quite similar, but your wine 1 should be lighter in style. And what's everyone getting for the Alsace? Where would you put that?
That's wine 3, isn't it? Alsace.
Alsace.
What is the second wine we're tasting?
Yes.
Yeah, it's labelled as 3. I've got confused.
Labelled as 3, yeah.
They've labelled, so that ignore the 1, 2, and 3. We're going to taste them in the order Pinot Grigio, Alsace, Chenin. So if you just go on the names of the wines.
Yeah.
So Pinot Grigio, would everyone agree that's fairly light in intensity on the nose?
Yeah.
Not much. The Alsace, Gewürz, what do you think? Medium, pronounced?
Much more medium. It's not light. It's got some weight to it.
Yeah.
Not a lot more, but just slightly, very slightly.
Slightly more. Yeah, no, so it's definitely medium, and it should really be heading towards pronounced, depending on the temperature of the wine. And wine, I shouldn't say wine 3, the Chenin Blanc, what are we there for intensity? light, medium, pronounced.
I think we're back up to light.
Yeah. But
Rachel, should we chill our whites down prior to these sessions?
yes, ideally.
I
Yeah.
think because I haven't, and I think that makes a big difference actually.
Yeah, they should be so the white should be like normal. The white should be chilled for an hour or so before to make sure they're the
Right,
right
to make sure
temperature.
for next time.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll be fine with the reds, but yeah, just pop the whites in the fridge. Okay, so in summary, the Pinot Grigio will be light in intensity. The Alsace Gewurz should be a more medium, bordering towards pronounced. And the wine 3, the Chenin Blanc, again, should be medium, really. Chilling them down actually will sort of dampen down the flavors, so it shouldn't really affect them too much on the whites. You should actually get sort of more of the character, really. But yeah, no, it's best practice just to pop them in the fridge for an hour or so before next time.
I assume so. Just thought I'd check.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's fine. Okay, so we're next going to come on to the nose, the character of the wine, and so we break the aromatic characteristics down into primary, which is the floral. If you look at the back of your lexicon, you can see the different families. So you've got your clusters, your green fruits, your citrus fruits, stone fruit, tropical fruit. They're all primary fruits, as well as you often get some sort of vegetable and herbaceous characters with things like Sauvignon Blanc. So that's primary fruit, and that characteristic comes directly from the grape. Secondary characteristics such as brioche, toast, butter, vanilla, they're all associated with winemaking practices. And then you've got your tertiary aromas, and they come from bottle aging. So you get prunes, mushroom, you often get dried sort of leathery tobacco notes, as well as dried fruit character. So that's coming from bottle aging. Okay, so if you'd like to have a little smell of wine 1, and tell me what sort of characteristics. Are we getting just primary fruit here, or are we getting anything else? The Pinot Grigio, sorry. Would you say it's just pretty much primary fruits?
I'm just primary.
Yeah, yeah. This is a really simple wine. It's unoaked. You're not going to get any winemaking secondary aromas, and definitely no tertiary aromas. You don't want an oaked or an aged Pinot Grigio. It's, on the whole, it's made to be drunk young and fresh. So it's all about the primary fruit. So with Pinot Grigio, typically sort of light, maybe some green apple from the green fruit cluster, maybe some lemon on the nose as well. So the second wine, what are we getting? Again, is it just primary, or is there anything else? This is an unoaked wine as well. Just generally sort of a fresh fruit character as opposed to anything else. Yeah, okay. So typically with a Gewurz, it's a grape that's quite aromatic. It should deliver sort of rose petal and light cheese. But again, it's unoaked, so you're not going to get any of this secondary characteristics, and definitely none of the tertiary characteristics with this particular wine. Okay, and then finally, we've got the oaked Chenin Blanc. Again, what are we getting? Primary, secondary, tertiary?
I would say some tertiary there. It's almost a mushroomy.
Okay. What's the vintage on the sample you've got?
Is it? Yeah, 2021.
2021.
Okay. So there might be a little hint of some tertiary notes coming in from a little bit of bottle age, but in theory, it should be all about, again, the primary fruit. But this wine's had some oak, so you should be picking up some more vanilla notes, maybe a little bit of butterscotch from the aging in barrel. It's only a short period, but there's that primary fruit, so stone fruit, peach, apricot, typical of Chenin, along with some oak characteristics with vanilla and the butterscotch. But as you say, 2021.
Yeah, you can get a bit of vanilla on it. Yeah, the more you smell it.
Sorry?
You can get some vanilla on it. Not
Yeah,
a lot, but sort of
a little hint of it.
Yeah.
But the idea is that, yeah, it shouldn't really have too much tertiary, but it's 3 years old, so you may start to get some of that more developed character coming through. Okay. So is everyone happy with their primary, secondary, and tertiary clusters?
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to taste the wines. Really. So let me just move on to our table. So when we look at the palate, we look at sweetness, acidity, tannin, alcohol, body, flavor intensity, flavor characteristics, and the finish. Sweetness is pretty straightforward. I'm sure you can identify that this wine, or all 3 wines, are dry. We'll taste some sweet wines later on in the course. Acidity, in terms of understanding what that is, it's just is your mouth watering. That's the sensation you want to be looking for. And tannin we don't cover off with white wines, but Rachel will come on to that with the red wines later. Alcohol, it's quite hard to detect sometimes in wine, because if you have a whiskey or something, you can feel that sort of burning down your throat. So, and that's the same with wine, you'll feel that warmth down the back of your throat. So you want to look out for that, but it can be sometimes hard to identify, particularly if a wine's really well balanced. If it's really unbalanced, it can taste quite alcoholic without the fruit to balance it out. So we're looking to see whether these are low, medium, or high.
It's a lot of practice, doesn't it, Rach, to pick out? It takes a lot of practice,
yeah, it does,
doesn't it, with alcohol? It's a hard one to identify, I think.
Definitely. The body of a wine, that takes on board the alcohol, the acidity, the tannin. It's the whole package, really. High acid wines are going to taste lighter in body. Full-bodied red wines with tannin and high alcohol are going to taste fuller-bodied. But a sweet wine from Sauternes, due to all that sugar content, is going to also taste full in body. Flavor intensity, again, light, medium, pronounced. The flavor intensity and the flavor characteristics, when we're assessing wines for quality, what we want to really make sure is whatever we've smelt on the nose follows through on the palate. A lot of cheap wines are made to wow you on the nose, and then you taste them and you don't get anything and they fall short. So that's a really important sort of quality assessment. So you want to be picking up those same flavor characteristics. So with the Pinot Grigio, we're getting some light green apples, some lemon, and maybe some pear. And then are they following through on the palate? And that should be the same for all the wines. And then is the finish short, medium, or long? And there's no time limit on this really, but I think you'll know if you have a wine and you taste it and it's gone within a few seconds, that's short. Medium, a bit longer, maybe up to 10 seconds. And a long finish, you may taste up to 2 or 3 minutes later, depending on the wine. So we use this system to taste. So if we start with wine 1, I think, is everyone happy with that being a dry white?
Yes.
So Ed, acidity on the first wine, the Pinot Grigio, where are you going to put it? Low, medium, or high?
Low.
In theory, it should be high.
I'll blame that on the Sauvignon I've been drinking up until now.
Yeah, that might not help.
I might let my palate adjust.
Yeah, the palate calibration's not quite working. Also, if it's not chilled, you might lose a little bit of that freshness. So yeah, if it's chilled, Pinot Grigio is a light, high acid grape. So all you need to know for your exam is that it's a high acid grape. Christine, alcohol, where are we going with this? Low, medium, or high?
I'm going to say a medium on that one.
Medium, absolutely. And most wines fall into the medium category. So typically they're between 11 and 13.9 is what we'd say medium. High is anything 14 and above, and low is below 11. So yeah, this is right in the middle, a medium alcohol. Mike, what have you gone for body?
I'd say light body.
Definitely light. And flavor intensity, Ed, where are we going with that?
Drink some more.
Don't have the Sauvignon. Flavor intensity of the Pinot Grigio.
At room temperature, it's medium at best.
Yeah, I'd probably go light with this one. Yeah, it's all the Pinot Grigio. It's a simple wine. It's light in body. The flavor intensity is light. Any character, Mike?
No, definitely
No,
not.
nothing there.
No.
Okay, and the
Don't need
finish,
any carrot whatsoever.
nothing at all, is there? Christine, the finish, are you going to go short, medium, long?
I'm actually going to go on a short one on that one because it doesn't actually leave much with me, but that
No.
might be because it's not chilled. It's not really sort of hitting the mark. So I don't know. But yeah, for me, that was quite short.
Short. It would be short anyway. That's absolutely the right answer. It's not a long finish at all. And again, chilling it will actually, you'll lose some of the flavour. So it's not such a bad thing. It's just better to taste it when it's slightly chilled. So no, you're spot on there. That's great. Now, when we look at equality, we look at 4 different elements in terms of making a conclusion as to whether it's poor, acceptable, good, very good, or outstanding, which we'll come on to later. So in fact, I want to do them actually as we go along each wine. So in terms of balance, what you're looking for is nothing to overwhelm. So if you have an oaked wine, it's not overwhelming the other elements. The fruit supports the oak. If it's high acidity, has it got enough fruit? So for that Pinot Grigio, would you give balance a tick? Do you think it's, I mean, I know it's not a wow wine, but do you generally feel like it's balanced?
Yeah, I wouldn't think it, but yeah, I guess for Pinot Grigio.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes with Pinot Grigio, especially at the cheaper end of the market, they can be massively high in acidity, and there's nothing there, and you need some fruit to balance off that high acidity. The length, are we giving that a tick? Or pretty short, wasn't it?
Yeah, short.
I think we'll go no for
Does it not depend on how much you paid for it as well, though? If you paid a lot of money for it, you'd be left wanting, wouldn't you? But if you paid 8, 9, you wouldn't be bothered if you
that's
come
true.
into it at all at the price point. Or...
You need to give Mike that Malbec to try.
It's
based on that. So intensity, where are we going with that? There wasn't much intensity. It was fairly light, wasn't it, on the aromatics and on the nose? And complexity. Now, complexity is an interesting one. We assessed that based on the different clusters. We only got a little bit of primary fruit. There was no secondary. There wasn't any tertiary. So I wouldn't say that was a very complex wine. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So based on that, I've got 1 tick in balance. So for what it is, it's balanced. So that would really be, for me, an acceptable quality for what it is. And that's how we'd assess that in WSET. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to the Gewürz from Alsace. Sweetness. Where are we at with this one, Christine? Dry, off dry, medium, sweet?
I'd say that's a medium.
This is also dry.
Because this actually, compared to the last one.
I know. It's a really funny thing. And what you'll realise as we go through the course, when you get to medium, it's actually really, really quite sweet in terms of the scale. But compared to the other one, because it's got a lot more flavour going on, it feels sweeter. But in terms of the residual sugar content, it's actually classed as dry. So it's quite a trick question.
Sorry, can I just interrupt for just 1 minute? Did you mention about not pouring all the samples in and reserving some? Yeah, cool.
So the acidity on the Gewürz, Ed, what have we got for that? Is it making your mouth water, or is it kind of in between?
It's quite moreish.
Yeah.
I'd say it was medium. It's not like it's not killing me.
Gewürz isn't a super high. I'm not expecting you to know these answers. It's just sort of getting what you feel from the wine. Yeah, no, it's not a massively high acid grape, so medium's about where it's at. Again, Mike, alcohol.
Medium, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say most of them will fall into that category. Christine, body?
No,
medium, high.
I'm going to go for medium again.
Yeah, definitely. What's interesting is as you progress at the WSET, this scale really branches out to like medium plus and medium minus, and it really helps because sometimes you feel like, well, it's medium, but it's better. It's less medium than the last one. So, but at this level, it just ends up being medium. So you get lots of mediums. Add flavor intensity.
It's good. I quite like it.
Yeah. So would you pop that in high maybe compared to the
I'd say it was more than, obviously I'm drinking at room temperature, but I would say, which is quite enjoyable actually, I'd say it was slightly over medium, but it's not pronounced.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Let's go with, yeah, you wouldn't get a wrong answer for that. So medium or pronounced would be absolutely perfectly acceptable. Flavor characteristics, Mike.
You mean I've just cleansed my palate with some Monkey 47? I can get. I could get some peach on that, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely got a lot of character going on, hasn't it? Typically with the Gewürz, you're going to get things like lychee, some rose character. It's quite an aromatic variety. And Christine, what do you think about the finish? Short, medium, or long?
For me, it was a medium again.
Medium, yeah.
Medium as opposed to a short from the Peugeot Green. I can't even say it now.
I know.
The PG.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so when we're thinking about the conclusions, do you think it's well balanced? Yeah.
Yes.
It's got the aromatics, it's got the acidity. There's nothing falling short, and I think that's what you want to check. When we did some WSET training a couple of weeks ago, the lady said that she always thinks about it as a band, and if you can hear the drummer over it is overwhelming everything. And it's a bit like that with the wine. You want it all to be about right, and if anything's really standing out, then it's not going to have balance. So I think this definitely has balance. In terms of the finish, we went for medium to, in theory, this wine, this Grand Cru Alsace, should be a long finish.
Right.
In terms of the scale, that's what the WSET have said of this sample. So in theory, a long. Intensity of flavour, well, we had almost pronounced from Ed, so it's definitely got some good intensity and complexity. There's quite a lot going on, would you agree, with the different aromas and flavours, different clusters?
They're all primary, but they're all different clusters, aren't they?
Exactly.
Fresh fruit and floral.
Yeah,
Nice. I like
That's the point.
That's a good point, actually, that Rach made, and it doesn't have to have all three, primary, secondary, tertiary, to be complex. If it's got a number of clusters from the primary fruit, then it can be considered clusters, because not all wines, all like really good quality wines, are aged in oak or aged at all. Okay.
Sorry. If you can write plenty of aromas and flavors, then that indicates that it might be a complex wine. If you can keep writing, oh, rose, violet, floral, lychee, Turkish delight, then that's a good indicator that there's some complexity.
Yeah. So in conclusion, what's everyone do you think it's good, very good, outstanding? Where's everyone at?
I'm gonna go for good.
Good.
Good to very good.
Very good.
Yeah, I'd go very good with this one, although I can't taste it, but that in theory is what WSET said in the notes. So yeah, so it should be a good example of an Alsatian Gewürz. Okay, and then finally the oak Chenin Blanc. If we go back to our sweetness, I think everyone would agree that this is a dry wine. Acidity, Ed?
Get some acid there. Hang on. Just.
Yeah, medium?
Yeah, I'd say medium. It's definitely not low, but it's not high.
No, so it's in the middle. Alcohol, again, I think, like we've talked about before, it's going to fall into that medium category. Christine, where are you at with the body? It's got that oak aging, that's going to add something to it. But is it full?
I'd say again medium, because it's got that acidity there, but it's got flavors coming through.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you'd be fine with it with medium. That'd be no problem. Flavor intensity, light, medium, pronounced. Mike?
I'd say medium again.
Medium. I remember saying medium a lot throughout WSET, so don't feel like it's everything's medium. It's like, is anyone doing anything else? Flavor characteristics, well, we had the primary fruit clusters, we had the secondary fruit clusters with the vanilla and the butterscotch, and the finish, I think we said, was medium as well. So in terms of conclusions, where are we at with this one? Do you think it's good, very good? Has it got balance?
I'm gonna hit it with good.
Good. I mean, it's got
Yeah.
the balance, hasn't it? It's
Yeah.
got the length's okay. It's medium. It's not short. I think it's better than the Pinot Grigio. So
Definitely
yeah, I
better than
think
Pinot, yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good shout. Okay, so does that all make sense?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's okay. It's just, as I say, it's a way to make sure we're all, when we're assessing wines, whether we're doing it in hospitality or whether we're doing it for a tasting exam, it's quite handy now. The only thing I ever really think about is balance when I'm tasting a wine. It's really important. And if you can just pick out those component parts and just check that, okay, there is some acidity, it's not too flabby. You can check that the length is not short. It's just quite a quick checklist to assess a wine on the spot, and you're often under pressure when people are showing you wines to make a decision. So it's quite a nice, handy little tool, really.
It's also important to put your personal preferences to one side when you're evaluating wines, which is really hard. We still find it hard, and we taste wines and evaluate them regularly. You're looking at whether it's a good example and whether it's balanced and whether it ticks all of those boxes when you're finding your conclusions, rather than whether you like that style or not, which is tricky when you don't really enjoy something.
I used to say I wouldn't drink it, but I'm sure it's right. Okay, so over to Rach.
Okay, so now we're going to have a look at our red wines and follow the same process that Rachel's just done with the white wines. So if you can pour out, I don't know whether you guys need to swap glasses or rinse them out, but just pull a small portion again of your, if you can reserve some of the samples, because we're going to do a bit of an exercise with the food pairing afterwards. We need a little bit of wine left over.
What are we doing then?
Say that again, sorry, Mike. Or was that Ed?
4 and 5.
Yes, it's 4 and 5. So we've got number 4, which is the Beaujolais Village, and then number 5, which is your Barolo. But just keep a small amount if you can to one side. Don't drink it all. I know it's hard not to.
How are you finding the sample sizes, guys? I know it's like they're 50 ml.
They're measly, aren't they? You need to do like half bottle sizes, because it's 2 hours is a long session to consume 250 mils when you're up for it. I mean, do you agree, Michael?
I didn't like to have a bottle of rosé on the side.
Well, Michael and I both warmed up before the session.
The good thing is that yeah, as we go along, the tasting, you're not assessed on the tasting, so it doesn't matter. Have fun with it as well, absolutely, because it is a lot to take on.
How audible is my stool?
No,
No,
I can't hear it.
no.
That's the first
You
time.
hearing it?
Let's have a full 360.
Oh,
Oh,
There
hear
we go.
that.
it was then.
Noisy there, isn't it? Noisy at the back
That did it.
That was not his stool.
Need some WD-40 there, Ed. Okay, so were we ready with our 2 reds?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to start off with the appearance again, so looking at intensity and colour. So when it comes to our red wines, intensity, again, we're looking at pale, medium and deep, like the whites. And then on the colour scale, we have purple, ruby, garnet, tawny and brown. Rach, would you mind bringing up that chart, please?
Yeah.
We have another little diagram just to elaborate on that. So here we are. This gives you a bit of an idea of the colour of wine and also the intensity of the colour. So when it comes to colour, there's sort of a few different reasons that why red wines have different colours. Well, 3 reasons primarily. The first one comes down to the grape variety itself. So the colour for a red wine, it comes from the pigment that's in the skins. So if you have a grape variety that has thin skins, it's going to have a low level of colour that we're able to extract. So for instance, that's your Pinot Noir, which is top left. Pinot Noir has thin skin, so there's little colour there in the first place to extract. This is different to, say, a thick-skinned grape like Cabernet Sauvignon. They have high levels of colour there in the skins ready to extract. So if you go along to on the top row, it's a Merlot Cabernet blend. And there's tannin in there, but you can see already that it's darker and it's a deeper intensity. Another factor that affects the intensity and the colour of wine is the level of extraction that a winemaker chooses to do during the winemaking process. So when we talk about extraction, it's the skin contact, it's the maceration that the wine has in contact with the skin. So that might mean, that might depend on the amount of time that the skins macerate with the wine. Or it also might be affected by the techniques that a winemaker might use during fermentation to help with extraction. So punching down and pumping over, which we'll talk about this over the next few weeks when we come to actually winemaking. But because when we're making red wine, the skins remain in contact with the juice and the wine until after fermentation, that can really affect the intensity and the colour. A good analogy when it comes to extraction and winemaking is when you're making a cup of tea. So the longer you leave your tea bag in contact with the water and the milk, the darker the colour becomes, doesn't it? It becomes stronger. That's just like your grape skins being in contact with the wine. And then finally, age has an effect on the colour. So as a wine ages, as a red wine ages, it starts off nice and vibrant, purple, ruby, and then it travels all the way through garnet and tawny, all the way to brown, potentially. Okay, Rach, please can you bring up the presentation? So we judge our intensity of and colour of red wine, like Rach suggested. If you tilt your glass over a white piece of paper, you can have a look at that quarter rim intensity and the colour too. So maybe if we do that with our wine number 4, the Beaujolais. How intense is that colour, Christine? Would you say it's pale, medium or deep?
I'd say it's medium. It's pale to medium. It's not a deep one.
Definitely, yeah, it should be along.
It palers off the tip of it. Yeah, it goes paler.
And what about the colour? Do you think it's more ruby purple, or are we heading down the other end of the scale? Christine?
It's ruby purple, is because I said the top part is lighter, so it's not a heavy wine. It's not an aged wine.
No, it can definitely. I think you would get a mark for ruby or purple on this one. I think they would be lenient. I put ruby, but then I put in brackets purple, so it absolutely could be either. It's definitely down that end of the scale. And then the Barolo, let's have a look at that one in comparison. So Ed, intensity wise, if you tilt your glass, what is it looking like? Is it pale also like the Beaujolais?
No, they're very different, aren't they? I'd say garnet towards tawny. Yeah,
absolutely. It's brick red, it's garnet. What about the intensity? Is it pale though too?
Yeah, it is paling around the outsides, isn't it? I mean, there's nowhere near as much visual weight to that wine as you look at them.
Very good. I like that visual weight. Very good. Lovely. Okay. So now let's have a look at the nose. So we're going to swirl it again to get the air in there. Bring it to our nose. Sorry, if we go back to wine 4 again. So intensity wise, how intense do you feel it is on the nose, Mike?
I'd say medium.
Yeah, a good when you're looking at the intensity on the nose, if you're swirling it down here and you can smell it down here, you're not even close to the glass. It's a pronounced wine. If you need to bring it up to sort of here, maybe medium. If you're really need to get in there and work really hard at trying to pick out some aromas, then it's more light intensity. So yeah, I would suggest medium with the Beaujolais. And what sort of aroma characteristics are we looking at with that one? If we have a look at our lexicon. So maybe have a look through primary fruits initially. Often the green, the citrus, the stone, the tropical are very much reserved for your white wines. Your red and your black fruit tends to be where you should be looking for your red wines. What are you picking up, Mike, on there?
I'd say red fruit characteristics, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. All the red fruit, raspberry, strawberry. What about secondary aromas? It hasn't spent any time in oak, so.
Not massively, no. It's pretty clean.
There shouldn't really be any more secondary or tertiary there, I don't think. So it's all about the primary fruit on this one. Another little tip, I don't know whether this is helpful, but when I write my tasting notes, I just write sort of the initials and then scribble down what I think, just to save time if that's helpful to everybody. So if you work your way down, so IC, IAC. So then moving on to our Barolo. What do you think about the intensity on this one, Christine, on the nose? Is it similar to the Beaujolais?
I think it's slightly more intense.
Yeah, a bit more pronounced.
Yes, more pronounced.
I don't know whether it is fully pronounced, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. And what about the aroma characteristics? Ed, can you shout some out for me? And are we looking at primary, secondary, or tertiary?
Bear with me.
It's all right. Take your time.
I'm getting some herbaceous in the primary, maybe.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe floral.
Let me have another smell. Yeah. Secondary.
This wine has
there's some wood and smoke in there.
Yeah, it spent a bit of time. It spent 6 months in oak, this wine, so there should be a hint there. Maybe some vanilla. And then what about tertiary, which we haven't come across yet? So we're thinking tertiary for a red wine, maybe the fresh fruit. There might be some has developed into some dried fruit. You might get some earthiness. Yeah. There's a lot going on, isn't there? We've got primary fruit flavors, some red and black fruit. I've got plum cranberry, some floral notes. There's some secondary characteristics from the time in oak, vanilla, smoke. And then there's also the tertiary there with some dried fruit and leather.
Like a Black Forest Gatto, maybe. I think.
Oh yeah. So yeah, there's lots going on in the nose. Quite different to the Beaujolais. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. A lot more complex.
Completely, yeah. You've got a simple wine in the Beaujolais, and then you've got a more complex nose on the Barolo. Okay. So now we're going to move on to our palate. But before we get stuck into that, I'm just going to have just mention tannin because we haven't had a look at that yet. So tannins are polyphenols that bind with proteins in your saliva. They come from the skin of the grape. And also, if a wine has spent a bit of time in oak, that might have an effect on the tannin levels, but primarily it's often from the skin. It's perceived on your palate, it has a mouth drying effect. So it can often feel quite chalky, or if you've drunk black tea before, it kind of sucks the moisture out of your mouth and just makes it feel quite bitter and astringent. That's the same effect that tannins have. So let's start with the Beaujolais and work our way down our palate SAT. So sweetness. Now, just talking about red wines, the majority of red wines that you taste throughout your WSET level 2 will be dry. So would everyone agree that this wine's dry?
Yes.
Yeah. What about the acidity levels and that mouth-watering effect on the Beaujolais? What do you reckon, Mike?
So quite acidic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a high acid wine. Yeah, it's a good example of a high acid
on the side of your tongues, like the Pinot Grigio in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has the same effect. So then moving on to tannins. So that mouth drying effect, that chalkiness, how does the Beaujolais feel? Ed?
Yeah, I'm getting mouth drying.
Yeah, sure. Is it sort of a low level, medium, high? Obviously, this is the first red wine we've tasted this evening, so we don't have anything to compare it to yet.
I'd say it's not overdone.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's a low tannin wine. What about alcohol, Christine? Do you pick up the alcohol
I
level?
would say low to medium. It's not a high alcohol.
Yeah, it's medium again.
Yeah,
the majority are, for sure.
Yeah.
And then when we come to body, just another comparison that might be helpful to you whilst you're doing your tasting. Body is the weight and the mouthfeel, as Rachel mentioned, how heavy the wine feels in your mouth. If you think about the different types of milk, that might help you put your light, your medium, your full wines into categories. So your light-bodied wines, like your Pinot Grigio, they're quite thin, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they feel like what skimmed milk feels like in your mouth. Your medium-bodied are like semi-skimmed, and then your full-bodied wines feel like whole milk or cream. They're really quite viscous and weighty. So that hopefully that might help. I still use that and think about it when I'm tasting. So body on the Beaujolais, Christine, what do you think?
Fairly light. I mean, it's not, again, it's light to medium. It's sort of in between there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
and
fairly
I think you would get a mark for either. But yeah, it's, again, a light-bodied wine usually. Flavor intensity. Ed, do you feel like it's similar to the aroma intensity in that it's medium?
Yeah, it does quite hit you. I'd say medium pronounced almost.
Yeah. I think you would be right there.
It's
And the flavour
sitting in the back,
characteristics.
is it?
Sorry, say that again, Ed.
Sitting in the back, is it? Not looking to be noticed. It's out there.
Yeah. There's lots of fresh, vibrant fruit. Similar to the aroma characteristics, would you say, or primary?
Remind myself. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
It follows through, doesn't it?
That's it. Yeah. So yeah, I would say finish wise, it's about medium. Again, it's not too short. It's not massively long, but it's not disappearing instantly. Okay, so when we look at our quality level for our Beaujolais, first of all, we look. Rach, can you just flick it on for me, please? Thank you. Oh, sorry.
It's back.
Back. Okay. So balance. Is everything in balance? I would say it is. Yeah, we've got light body, we've got high acidity, but there's plenty of fruit there to maintain it. So I would give it a tick. Length of finish. We just said medium, didn't we? So it's not wowing us with the finish, but it's not disappointing us too much. So half a tick. Intensity wise, we said medium, did we, overall? Flavor and aromas. So again, probably half. We're not shouting about it, are we? But it's not too bad. Complexity. What do you reckon, Christine? Would we give it a mark for complexity?
I would give it half again.
Yeah, I think we would be generous if we gave it half because it's just primary fruit, isn't it? And we're just looking at that red fruit cluster really when it comes to the Beaujolais. So although it's a nice example. It's not got a lot going on when it comes to, especially if when we taste the Barolo, of course, even on the nose with the Barolo, there's a lot more complexity there, wasn't there? So we've got what have I got? 1, 2 ticks. So where would we pop that quality wise? What do you think, Mike? What would you suggest?
I mean, WSET probably say acceptable, but I think for a Beaujolais, if I got that and ordered a Beaujolais, I wouldn't expect any more. So I'd say it's a good Beaujolais.
I put good, I think.
The Beaujolais go.
I think it's good. It's not. It's more than acceptable, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a good example.
Yeah.
So moving on to our Barolo, let's have a look at the palate on our Barolo. So sweetness wise, would everyone agree that we're dry again?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how are we feeling about the acidity? Mike, what do you reckon on the acidity?
You know what, just to say though, now that's been poured in the glass for a while, you can the flavors are even more pronounced. Oh, now
It's had time to open up. Yeah, that's it. The effect of it aerating a little bit.
Remember to save some for your food.
I haven't tasted that one yet.
I know there's not much.
I know.
Did anyone order the 25 ml samples?
Oh, do you know what? Because we've never used these samples before, but WSET recommended this company to us, so we were just interested to see. Yeah, I don't think anyone would go for 25s.
I think it's a good idea. It's dead cool the way the box turns up.
Yeah.
25 ml, that is obviously nowhere near enough, and
no,
it's just about doing it. But yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
All right. So we're on acidity. Mike, what do you reckon on the acidity scale?
I'm tasting it over there.
Rach, can you just pop it along one, please? Slide. Oh, I know.
That there?
Perfect. Sorry, Mike.
Quite acidic, actually. Definitely medium acidity. What? That's getting on with quite a bit. I'd say medium plus if we're doing that.
It's yeah, I would say it's heading for high with this one. Similar to the Beaujolais, you've got the high acidity. Tannin wise, how does that compare to the Beaujolais, Ed? What do you think? Is there more tannin?
Yeah, there is, but it's not unpleasant. It's not like a short. Yeah, I'd say it was medium to high.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We're getting on.
No, they don't eat sweet corn. They eat tuna.
We're getting on for high when it comes to Barolo and the tannin. It's deceptive and it hoodwinks you a little bit because it's pale. When you look at it in the glass, you think maybe it will be low in tannin and low in body, but actually the tannin's definitely there. And compared to the Beaujolais, you can tell that's a low tannin and this one's a high. Although it's still enjoyable, like you said, because it's well balanced. So what about body, Christine? How does that, what kind of milk does that feel like in your mouth?
I think body medium to full. It's, as you say, it's quite deceptive. You think it's going to be quite light, but actually, there's a bit of body there.
Definitely, so again, edging towards full.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've written down full, definitely. And then the flavor intensity and the flavor characteristics, do we feel like they're as intense on the palate as they are on the nose, everybody?
I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not disappointed, I don't think, are we, when we move from the nose to the palate? We're all happy with how it's progressing. And then finally, the finish. Is it lingering for a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, it's looking good, this, isn't it? It's looking good. So when we look at our quality level and our blick, do we feel like the wine is in balance? Is everything like a band or like an aeroplane? Everything is of equal measures. Nothing's wonky and sticking out.
That's good. It's well balanced.
It is, yeah. We've got a high alcohol, a high tannin, our full body, sorry, but we've got those pronounced aromas and flavors to support all of those other components. Length, I think we all suggested that was long, so tick there. Intensity, again, yeah, we were quite happy with the intensity, so I've put half. And complexity, what do you reckon? Is it a complex wine?
I'd say it was. There's a few things going on there, isn't there?
For sure, yeah. We've got primary fruit characteristics, we've got the secondary fruit characteristics, and then we also picked up some tertiary. There's lots, I've written down a lot of aromas and flavors that I could pick up. So that indicates that it's a complex wine. So what do we think then? Sort of quality level. I've got 3.5 ticks.
I would say very good.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I'm towards very good, yeah. I drink that.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't think we're quite at outstanding yet, but yeah, there's enough there to warrant it very good.
Mm.
Hopefully they were good comparisons of styles and also quality levels too. You've got a simple wine with just the fresh fruit characteristics, low tannin, light body, and then you've got the Barolo that's high alcohol, full body, intense, high tannin, and got a lot of complex flavors also.
I think I need food with it. I wouldn't want to have it. I wouldn't sit there and drink it on its own. It's not that kind of wine for me. But
it's not a quaffer, is it?
No.
It's yeah, it's absolutely 100% a food wine. I remember when I did one of our diploma exams a couple of years ago, and we had the exam on one day, and then we did a tasting tutorial day, which was fantastic at the WSET school. But of course, we'd all gone out the night before to celebrate our doing the exam, had a great time in London, and went to this tasting tutorial. 10:30, got served. The first wine was a glass of Barolo, and oh, it was rough. It was hard going. It's not what you want to be greeted with at 10:30 after an evening out. But yeah, good, two very comparable styles. Okay. So that sort of boxes off the tasting part initially. Does anyone want to run through anything or recap or ask us any questions at all before we move on?
Presumably, Rachel, you said you've recorded this, so if we want to back over things, we can.
Yeah, I did check it was still recording, that I hadn't accidentally clicked.
And we're going to do lots more tasting.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, you've got the samples, so we'll be, and you follow the same process, and you will see some progress in how you're picking out these different sort of structural components and the aromas and flavors too. It's nice progress to see.
Mm.
So just before we move on to food and wine, oh, sorry. Does someone, no? Just before we move on to food and wine pairing, I'm just going to say a little bit about service and storage. So in your textbook, if you turn to chapter 3, there's a chapter on storage and service. We're not going to go into great depth now on this, but if you could focus some time on this over the next week and have a read of it and understand it, that would be fantastic. But just a few key takeaways from this chapter I just wanted to run through. The first being how important storage is when it comes to your wine, which, I mean, Rachel's touched on this when we chatted about faults just earlier. It's really important if you're storing a wine for a long period of time, especially, to do it correctly so that your wine doesn't develop any faults. The 3 main considerations that you need to remember are that the temperature remains cool and constant, that you keep your wine away from strong light or sunlight. And if your wine is sealed under a cork closure, that you keep it on its side. This is to maintain the contact between the wine and the cork itself, so the cork doesn't dry out and the wine doesn't come into contact with any oxygen, which would develop a fault. And then also in this chapter, there's a little diagram about service temperatures, which is a good idea to have a good look at that and try and remember the recommended service temperatures for the different styles of wine, please. And then finally, glassware. I think it's just worth mentioning that although there's a few sort of loose rules, it's a very individual thing and choice, glassware. I'm sure we've all got different glasses in our houses because it's a personal taste. And different establishments have different styles of glasses, but generally as a rule, wine glasses tend to be wider at the base than they are at the rim. This is so that the aromas and flavours can be captured in the glass and you can enjoy them. Red wine glasses tend to be larger than white wine glasses, and sparkling wine tends to be served in flutes or sort of the nice tulip-shaped glasses. So they're just a few little takeaways from that chapter, but if you can, as your homework for this week, make sure that you read that chapter, please. Okay. Is everyone okay? Would anyone like a bathroom break or anything, or a little water break before we continue?
No, fine, fine.
Oh, good. Okay. All right, Rach, I'll pass over to you for the food and wine pairing. I'm going to put the light on, I think.
Okay, so it's a very subjective topic, food and wine pairing. It's always quite interesting when we do this section in class. Everyone's got their own palates, which is very individual and subjective, and there's no right or wrong, but the WSET just draws you to some basic guidelines to follow. But personal preferences do matter, and when we think about the impact food and wine has on each other, it's the food that has the impact on the wine and not the other way round. So food and wine interactions. So if a food is sweet, it's going to make the wine seem more drying, more bitter, more acidic, less sweet and less fruity. A good example of this was I was at a party on Saturday night, and they'd ordered a Mr. Whippy van to come, and I was drinking a German sparkling rosé, which was just a hint off dry. And you could really taste that. I had my ice cream well, it wasn't the best combination, but I then had an ice cream. I went back to my rosé, and my rosé was just bone dry, or tasted bone dry. And I was like, oh my God, that's a really good example of how the foods affected the wine. So that was really interesting. So yes, sweetness will make a wine more dry, more bitter, more acidic, less sweet and fruity. Umami does exactly the same thing, and we're going to come on to umami a little bit later. Salty food and acidic food does the opposite. So if you remember one of them, you'll remember the other one. You'll often get a question on this in your exam, so it's always worth learning at least one of them, of the two categories. So salty food is going to make the wine less dry, less bitter, less acidic, more fruity, and give it more body. And the same with acidity. That's going to make it less dry, less bitter, less acidic. Okay, so we're going to just do some exercises with some food to try and demonstrate this. So Rachel's just got a little test she's going to do with some bitter strips. I think you should all have your bitter strips. I don't know if you've got your stuff, Mike.
I have.
Did you take this little powder patches on the plane?
Taken far worse, Rachel.
Tell them the story about when we got to Dublin.
That's for another day.
maybe not on a recorded Zoom.
Yeah. We'll do that one in person. Okay, so we're going to do the exercise with our bitter strips, which you've all got in your Morrison Ziploc bag. So negative food and wine interactions they often make wine taste more bitter. And if you're sensitive to bitterness, it'll be more unpleasant. We all have different tolerance levels when it comes to bitterness, and this can come from, it can be hereditary. So we could have got it through genetics, or it might be to do with our diet and lifestyle. So if you do drink, maybe drink strong black coffee regularly and a lot of it, you'll become more tolerant to that bitterness and you'll find it more pleasant, I guess. Good tasters tend to be tolerant, sensitive, and very sensitive. No one sort of group is better than the other. So what we're going to do, if you can all get out your little bitter strip, and when I say go, you're going to put it on your tongue. Don't eat it, just pop it on your tongue. When you notice and perceive that bitterness, pop your hand up and you can take it off as well. Okay, so are we, oh, Ed, hang on, I didn't say go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Right, come on, what am I doing? What's it meant to do?
You meant to
It's
get like a
like-
bitter taste.
Ugh. And it lingers in your mouth.
We
as well,
think
you
that
might
much espresso, clearly.
My tongue's obviously been much worse places than everybody else.
It's still going.
Not getting anything.
No, okay.
Are they both the same?
Yeah, they're all, yeah, I just put a couple in so you had a spare. So maybe try the other one. But hopefully that just shows like Rachel put her hand up first, and then maybe Mike, and then Christine and Ed still going. So hopefully that shows that we all really have different tolerance levels when it comes to bitterness.
Have you eaten it, Ed?
Oh, then, yeah.
Oh,
I'm out to give us this Cocker Spaniel here.
Oh,
look. Oh,
what are you
Can you
eating,
see it?
Dad?
he thinks it's food. I love that.
Thinks he's missing
You know
out.
what that means? He would eat it.
Yeah, I bet. So this just shows how important it is to calibrate our palettes and work with the with the SAT, sorry, so that we're all again on the same page. Okay, feel free to have a drink after that. Ugh. And then I'll pass over to you again, Rach, with you, Marmy.
Yeah, okay. So umami's a really funny flavour to describe and to isolate. It's got that sodium sort of characteristic from the monosodium glutamate, but it's got salt, but it's different. For me, when I taste MSG, it's kind of got like almost like a texture to it. So what I'd like you to do, Rachel's given you some MSG in a little bag. If you lick your finger and then dip it in the bag. This looks so dodgy, doesn't it?
Michael, how did you get
sounds
this?
dodgy.
I know.
How did you get that through? Same way we went to Dublin.
I didn't put it in my sock now.
Oh dear, that's too
Marmy
funny.
girls, how do you consume this? Do I need a rolled
Oh.
up nose?
No, you just need your finger, lick your finger and pop it in the bag. And just notice that sort of flavour. It's salty, but it's not, is it? It's got like a sort of, it's almost like a texture, isn't it?
So what does MSG stand for, did you say?
Monosodium glutamate.
Oh,
It-
tastes like
it's got that
Chinese food.
sodium.
Yeah, it's a seasoning, and I always think about like cooked mushrooms. So when raw mushrooms don't have it, but when you cook mushrooms, you get that kind of flavor. Soy sauce, that kind of flavor as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chinese takeaway completely.
So if you're having a Chinese takeaway, then whatever you're drinking, it's going to make the wine seem drier, more bitter, more acidic. So for example, that Barolo that you had earlier on is already quite dry and quite bitter. And if you have the Chinese takeaway with the Barolo, it might exacerbate those characteristics. So that's not necessarily the best match. So it's just thinking about things like that.
So where are you sticking MSG in your little table here?
It's umami.
Yeah, we might. Okay.
Yeah. Dry, more bitter, more acidic.
Mm.
Okay. Right, now we're going to taste some wine with some bits and pieces, aren't we, Rach?
Yeah, so hopefully you guys have got some lemon, some salt, and maybe something sweet like a sweet biscuit to hand. Yeah, fantastic news. So we're going to go back and revisit our wine number 1, our Pinot Grigio. So what I would like you to do, hopefully you've got enough just to have a little taste, and then try your sweet biscuit and then taste the wine again. And just take note of how it changes the wine.
You're asking for a lemon wedge and some salt, please.
Did you not take what you now serve it with you, Michael, to Greece?
I have that's off too.
Oh, right, of course.
I've just done his screen time passcode for the hour on Clash of Clans, so he's happy. And he's on his
Very acidic.
Coke of the day, so.
I love that. I love the fact when you're on holiday with kids, they're literally, it's way, give me some peace, here's 10 euros, go to the shop.
There's no rules for
out
that.
the window.
The only rule I've said is they can't have a fizzy drink before 12 o'clock. That's the only...
Okay.
That's the same rules as at home, Michael. You don't like it anyone, yeah. Got really biscuits, lemon, and what?
Biscuits, lemon, and salt, please, Ed.
Salt. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes it really acidic.
Ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a negative interaction, isn't it? So if we look at our table, sweet food makes a wine more acidic and less fruity. The Pinot Grigio, that's kind of all it's got going for, isn't it? It's got that high acid and that fruitiness. If you exacerbate the acidity,
exacerbate.
you haven't had any wine, and you take away that fruitiness, it's not gonna do the wine any favors. So that's a good example of a negative reaction or interaction.
Okay, so we're gonna. Oh, is it me now?
Sorry, Rach. No, I just do the lemon with one.
Oh,
one.
sorry, yeah.
And then hopefully you guys have just got a drop left of the Pinot Grigio. If you can try that alongside your slice of lemon, and let me know how that changes the wine.
Can't even taste it.
The wine?
No, it's just disappeared.
It's definitely made the wine.
It should, if we look at our table again, it should soften the wine, so soften that high acidity and make it more sweet and fruity, which is probably what you pick up, Christine. So hopefully there's sort of some good examples of just of demonstrating what a sweet food can do and what acidic food can do to that style of wine.
That's great, thank you.
Okay, so we're next going to look at wine 5, the Barolo. So if you could have another little taste of wine 5 and then have a taste of the sweet biscuit, that'd be great. So if we look at our chart, that should have made the wine more dry and more bitter and more acidic. Would you agree?
I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. That Pinot Grigio before was so acidic, my tongue was hurting. But after that sweet biscuit, which was meant to make it even more acidic, I found almost the opposite. It doubled the acidity. But
yeah, with you, Michael, I felt the same. Let me just take this Cocker Spaniel out, carry on without me. I'll be 2 minutes. He's looking at me at the door going, come on, Dad, come on.
Yeah, sometimes, like, again, this shows personal preference again, doesn't it? And different tolerances, because we do get this, don't we, Rach? It's not always textbook.
And some examples are really good and really obvious, and some people are going, oh, I don't get that at all. But it's all you need to know for the exam is this is what the WSET are looking for, expect to happen with samples, especially and we're not all eating the same biscuits and stuff like that. It does make a difference, but yeah. So after the wine 5, after the sweet biscuit, what did you feel happened? Did it make it drier, more bitter, more acidic? Yeah. That's the effect it should have had. And with a high tannin wine like that, it's not an ideal pairing. Now what I'd like you to do is dip your finger in some, lick your finger, dip it in the salt, and then taste wine 5 again.
Yeah.
It's not much of a supper, is it? A biscuit, a slice of lemon, and some salt.
It's like a nude party game.
Conditions as well.
So in theory, the salt should actually, if we're looking at a chart, it should really soften the wine. It should make it more fruity, give it more body, less dry, less bitter. Did you notice that interaction?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the salt really works. We do this with a claret when we do it in person with a Medoc, which is high tannin. When you have some salty food, it really softens it, brings the fruit out. If you have something sweet, it makes it harsh. So yeah, it hopefully gives you a little bit of an interaction between the two flavors. Did you find that, Mike, with the salts and the Barolo?
I had sadly run out of my Barolo sample, so I was.
Don't worry. Yeah, that's all right. Okay.
What have we missed salt then?
We were just doing the Barolo, firstly with a little bit of the sweet biscuit, and then with salt. So if you have a sip of the Barolo and then a bit of sweet biscuit. That should really be quite a negative interaction.
Got Barolo left, or are you just pretending?
Well, I'm We need to be on mill samples.
So,
Mills
It's like in
nowhere
the
near
war
it.
during the WSET.
so did you feel that was a negative interaction with the
Yeah,
sweetness?
it completely dissipated the quality of that wine.
Yeah. And then put your finger into salt and then have some more of the Barolo, and you should notice the opposite effect. It should make it more fruity, give it more body, less dry, less bitter.
Yeah, it goes.
I mean, unfortunately, you haven't got a lot. So if you put too much salt in, it depends on your ratios. But if you, in theory, if you had a nice big mouthful of Barolo after you putting your finger in the salt, you would notice it really softens the wine. And they're just some of the basic principles of food and wine pairing that we can look out for. But as Rach said, and we said at the beginning, it's a very subjective thing, and what should happen doesn't always happen, and that's fine. But this is what WSET want you to learn for the exam.
Yeah, it's mainly just focusing on this table, which I think is on page 11 in your workbooks. Just try and remember those principles, and hopefully the examples will support that.
And what I tend to do is with this, I learn sweet and salty, and then I know what the other two do, because they do the same in each category. So you don't need to learn all four. And again, for me, if I remember my sweet interaction with my Mr. Whippy ice cream, I can then figure out the rest of the table. So it's learning one, and then it should help you figure it all out. But if you've got any questions on that, obviously we're here to help. So please get in touch with us if you need anything.
And then we've just got one more. If you've got some of wine 4 left, the Beaujolais, we're going to try that and try a little bit of the MSG and try the wine alongside it, please. So this is on umami on the table.
You know, you can get much smaller self-seal bags than this, you know.
That's just what I had in the cupboard, Ed.
You don't have to like rummage in them. You can get like size ones, you know.
Sachet. I'll have to try and get individual sachets next time.
I'll send you some.
Pop it on the feedback, Ed.
My bag was too big.
You've got some MSG for your cooking anyway.
Right, so I've just got to dip my finger in. I'm doing the MSG now, right?
Yeah, MSG in your Beaujolais.
Yeah, so that has worked with what the table suggested happened, definitely with the Beaujolais. More acidic after you've had it.
So this could go either way, I think, because it says that umami should make it more acidic. You've already got an acidic wine, so it could push it out of balance. But at the same time, it could be positive because the umami makes it less sweet and fruity. And that Beaujolais was super fruity, wasn't it? There was loads of that primary red fruit. So potentially it could stand up and be an enjoyable reaction or interaction.
It makes it definitely more neutral. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought so as well. Yeah. It didn't go as acidic as the other one.
I just think it diminishes the character.
Yeah, it makes it. That's it. It can make it less fruity and more acidic. So I've got written down a negative interaction, but I can see how, as it's so fruity, it could stand up to it. Okay, I think we're almost done. Oh, Rach, I'll pass on to you for the next little bit.
Yeah, so just some other considerations when we're thinking about food and wine pairing. Chili in dishes, the interaction that's going to have, it's going to really heighten any alcohol in food. Sorry, any alcohol in the wines. So if you've got high alcohol full-bodied red and you're pairing that with something spicy, it's really going to intensify the alcohol and make it out of balance. So that would be something to consider. Flavor intensity is a really good one, actually, because we talk about pairing white wine with fish and red wine with steak and all that sort of stuff. But what you've got to remember is you've got different flavors. So you might have fish, but you might have a sauce that takes it to a different level. And in that scenario, maybe say if you had a fish in a rich sort of creamy sauce, instead of going for like a crisp white wine, you might want to go for more of an oaked Chardonnay or an oak Chenin Blanc because it's got the sauce and it needs a little bit more going on. So you're trying to match like for like. And again, something like a good example is Christmas lunch. Again, if you were, not that you would necessarily pair a Pinot Grigio with Christmas lunch, but the Pinot Grigio is going to get completely lost in all those flavors. You want a bigger white that's going to stand up to all the flavors that are going on. I usually like maybe a chilled red or something to go with, all because you've got cranberry and all that sort of stuff. So it's just thinking about pairing like for like in terms of the intensity of flavor of the dish, not necessarily just the meat. And the third consideration is sort of acidity and fat and the impact. If you've got a high acid wine, like a sparkling wine, that's really going to cut through a high fatty dish. So that's why people always talk about pairing a sparkling wine with fish and chips, because you've got that lovely high acidity that's going to take the edge off the fat in the dish. So there's lots to consider, excuse me. It's not just the four on the table, it's other considerations. And a lot of it's common sense, really. But it's just thinking about what works with what best. And we've just got a few, we're going to go through the wines, aren't we? And just talk about some food and wine matches. So just briefly, the Pinot Grigio, a bit like a sparkling wine, that's going to pair well with fish and chips in terms of the flavour intensity. They're a fairly equal match. There's not too much going on. The lemon's going to work well with the Pinot Grigio, which we discussed before. It's also salty, and that's going to make the wine seem less acidic. And Pinot Grigio is quite a high acid grape, so that would be a nice match for a Pinot Grigio. The Gewurz, it's a really aromatic grape. So you really want to match like for like. You want to match it with something, maybe a Thai dish, something with a bit of spice. It can take on all those flavors. And then a Chenin Blanc, again, like I just touched on before. If it's an oaky Chenin Blanc, you might want to go with a dish that's got a creamy, richer sauce, or maybe a Christmas lunch, that sort of thing. It's just thinking about, again, matching the flavor intensities with each other. Okay, and Rach, you've got some red ones?
Yeah, so the Beaujolais Bellage is quite versatile. The high acidity means that it works really well with food again. So you'd want to pair it with maybe some fatty styles of food because, like Rach said, the high acidity cuts through and acts as a palate cleanser. So maybe some charcuterie because it has high fat content, pate or soft cheese as well works really well with high acid wines. But because the Beaujolais also is low in tannin, it would work really well with fish too, alongside meat. So maybe some salmon or tuna. And then the Barolo. So as we found, salt softens the wine, softens that bitterness, that astringency. Our Barolo has that high tannin. And it also has, it's richly flavoured, wasn't it? It was intense, it was complex, there was lots going on. So we need something with the same flavour intensity. So something like game or meat or steak that's well seasoned, salty, will help soften those high tannins. And then the flavour and aroma profile is similar with game, that earthiness, and the earthiness of the game would also work really well with the berry and the red fruit characteristics of the wine. Something that wouldn't work would be, like Rach mentioned, spice with that Barolo. That would just really, the high alcohol level, it'd be ignited in your throat and be really unenjoyable if you paired it with a curry or a spicy crisp. Okay. Is there anything that you would like us to recap over before we bring the session to an end?
No.
We've thrown quite a lot of information at you within the 2 hours.
I've only got one question. It's not really, but it is related, but it's a little bit like not to do with what we talked about. Yeah, so we're going to have curry tomorrow night. So what is my best wine to drink when I get? And I like hot curry. Claire will not eat hot curry, so she'll get something like really lame. But I like really hot curry that burns my face out. So what am I drinking? It's obviously going to be white.
Yeah, you want something. So you want something lower in alcohol because we don't want to ignite that spice anymore. Although you might enjoy it, Ed, if you like your face burned off.
Quite extreme in many respects.
Yeah, something like a Moselle Riesling would be lovely.
Because, German Riesling, yeah.
Yeah, because you've got, it's low in alcohol, like Rach just said. You've got a bit of sweetness, which is going to help with the spiciness. So if you're drinking wine rather, I think, I mean, I always think beer's a nice match for, obviously,
Get
everyone
a
does.
4-pack of Cobra.
Yeah.
By the time I eat, Rachel, I'll already be 4 or 5 beers deep, you see.
So you're moving on to wine.
Ready
Yeah,
to
no.
switch, yeah.
Volume.
Yeah, nice. A Riesling from the Moselle, and then it's going to have a bit of residual sugar. It'll probably be about 8-9% alcohol.
Yeah.
No,
So
that's
that
too
will
low.
be.
I don't do that stuff. So aim
Just
higher.
drink more. You just drink more of it. Just drink more of it.
2 bottles.
Yeah, but I've got a volume issue if I'm
Dedicated.
full of 5 pints.
Just
I
do
can't
more.
go into 8% wine because it's the same as beer. What am I drinking between 11 and 13 so I can still function the next day without repetition because I've drank something over 13% that will accompany my curry.
The Gewürz might not be a bad shout. That's going to be higher in alcohol. It'll be fully fermented dry, and it's aromatic. So it would work
Pairing
from,
with
yeah, it'd be a
curry.
good pairing. So yeah, look, Gewürz has got a lot going on. And just check the alcohol on the back to check it is, but it should be around 11%. So yeah, that could work, definitely.
I'll update you.
Yeah, let us know next
No.
week what you
Thanks,
go
ladies.
with.
Funny. Are you cooking the curry? You can pop some of that MSG in for a bit of extra texture.
I might not cook in the curry. No, it's getting delivered, but I might do some of that MSG as a warm up before it gets in. Only because it's coming in a like clear zip bag. I'm like, oh, yes.
Maybe
That's
just
obviously naughty.
I'm gonna have to think about my packaging, aren't I?
You might need to, yeah. If you're gonna like expand, it sends maybe the wrong message.
All friends here.
Oh, that's so funny.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. We've really enjoyed our first session. If you guys need anything over the next week, obviously we'll send you the recording and we'll send you like any instructions for next Tuesday. But please, you've all got both of our details. So if you need anything in between, don't hesitate to drop us a message.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Would you like to see Rosie,
Yes.
the puppy?
100%. Bring her
for
in.
you.
Christine's just got a new Labrador, baby, a little puppy. I was going to say a baby.
I was going to say, it was a child. I'd be like, what?
A puppy. You
I
probably thinking,
misheard
what?
there as well. Michael was thinking, what is Christine going to show us?
Oh,
Oh,
look
Lord.
at her.
Oh my
She's
God.
beautiful. I'm going to make my screen bigger now.
Oh, I can't see her face. Oh, how cute. Problem with black labs, because I used to have a black lab, is when you photograph them, you can't see them ever.
No, particularly if they're on a black sofa.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get lost. Oh, I'm so
you see
jealous,
her?
Christine.
Are you right there, Ed?
Oh, look at her.
Yeah, I'm just like biting my tongue. There's so many jokes in here that I'm not letting out.
We'll have to have like a WSET after sun, whatever it is,
Yeah. Uncut.
after wine.
Oh, God.
Oh, well, listen, we'll let you guys go because I know, Mike, you're on holiday.
Yeah, go and enjoy the rest of your break.
Ed's
Thank
got some
you.
Sauvignon Blanc to finish.
Yeah, I've got a few. Thank you,
Oh,
ladies.
Thanks,
Really
guys.
enjoyable.
Nice to see you,
Time
Christine,
next
too.
week.
Thank
See
you
you
very much.
next week.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
You know,
Bye.
Bye.
Hello.
You still there, Ed? Hold on. How do I get out?